Welcome to What I Wish I Knew at 30. Today, I'm joined by Tim Whitehead, a British entrepreneur with over 4 decades in the global food and hospitality industry, from five-star kitchens in Europe and Canada to billion-dollar conglomerates in the Middle East, and now championing Malaysian farms as Group CEO of Lush Food Group. Tim's career has spanned just about every corner of the food world. He's a visionary leader, a hands-on deal maker, and when he's not building businesses, you'll probably find him on his Harley Davidson leading rides across Malaysia, equal parts foodie, biker, and business builder. Tim's story is about creating impact with heart, connecting cultures, and most of all, enjoying the ride. Tim, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Did I
Thank
miss
you.
anything?
No,
You're very welcome.
that's about right. And I actually didn't write that bio; it was written for me. So you suddenly feel your head swelling. Yeah, I shouldn't have put that in. And a global visionary. Come on, whatever it was, it's a bit over the top. But
I like that because I mean, it is global, and I think that one of the things is we are very humble. But from from the days back in the UK, how many years ago was that, Tim? Where we all first met to to where you are now, and and that journey through the Middle East in a time when the Middle East really wasn't probably wasn't seen as a world leader. But I think that's something which definitely has changed. Do you
yeah, there
agree
was a
with
big.
that?
Yeah, I would. There's a big change. I think when I first went out there, I think it was also, they liked the foreign brands coming in and they believed that foreign was better. And now they've realized actually locally produced product, local brand building, developing brands that are going out of the Middle East now have become, they've got their own feet now and they've got the pride and belief. Look at Dubai chocolate. That's a success globally. Everybody's copying everything is Dubai chocolate. It would appear. And coming to Malaysia, and they're now probably how Dubai were. So they still believe that foreign
No,
product is better
absolutely.
than local product. And then you then sort of say, okay, name a famous Malaysian brand that the world knows. And the only one I can actually think of is probably Jimmy Choo shoes, which nobody even realizes they're Malaysian. But they would rather have, a Prada handbag, or they would rather import Heinz tomato ketchup rather than promote their own. And we've gone back the other way. And what we're doing here is we're saying, Malaysia produces some amazing produce. Let's build these brands here. Let's get them up and start exporting them out the other way. And not just be a factory, low cost factory country which can produce product for other parts of the world. It's about actually building that brand and standing up for itself. I think Malaysia's got a long way to go. I think the huge difference is of visionary leadership that exists in the Middle East, particularly Sheikh Mohammed in Dubai and his father. The way that they have created brand Dubai and made it such an amazing place.
They
For some
truly
people,
understand, don't they, what it takes.
yeah. And you either love Dubai or hate Dubai. It's very Marmite. People just think it's very brash, very bling, and all the rest of it. But you've been around Dubai with me, and and outside of
Yeah.
Dubai, the whole of the UAE. There's so much culture, so interesting, so varied. It's a really exciting place to be, and stuff happens there. Stuff happens. Other parts of the world, you realize things are a bit slower, a little bit harder, and you have to have a lot of patience, but at the same time, you have to be more pushy probably over here than you do in the Middle East to get stuff done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Dubai is, one of the most incredible things that I've seen is Dubai says we're going to do this, and 3 months later, when you come back, it's done.
They've done
It's
it.
like I've never seen the speed of innovation. I mean, it's just phenomenal, and I think that, as you're right, it's a very exciting place to be. There's always something new going on. Whether it's flying cars, whether it's taxis which are driven, driverless taxis, although
Yeah,
you have those in Austin as well.
right.
Yeah, just an incredible place. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Love
it's
Dubai.
dynamic. It's exciting. So,
Yeah, it
and
is dynamic.
it's very future forward looking, but they've become very green and environmentally friendly. When you look at the amount of things that they're growing there naturally and the things that they're doing,
Yeah.
when they put that canal in, and it's like the canal, that's crazy. They're going to put a loop all the way around the city. And one of the reasons was to drop the CBD temperature by about 1.5 degrees, but they realized that would work. And then suddenly the 16-lane highway, they managed to put a canal under it. And it opened. all in, I think, 2 years or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Phenomenal,
No,
phenomenal.
definitely. I mean, no, it's phenomenal. I mean, yeah, from a visionary perspective, from an innovation perspective, Dubai is, and we can talk about Dubai all day, but we're not going to, not on this episode. Maybe we'll come back and revisit that one afterwards because I think there's a lot definitely to be talked about regarding the Middle East and Dubai. So, Tim, imagine we're jumping in a time machine right now. You're 30 years old again. Where are you? What are you doing? And what's going through your mind at that stage of life?
Okay. Well, that was one of those pivotal times in my life. I had just got married. I had a young family, two young children, and the lady I had married had three children of her own. So I was bringing up five kids.
Oh,
I had been in the hotel industry, and you know what it's like in the hotel industry. You're working 7 days a week, early in the mornings, and very late at night. And I remember that my wife had said to me, "Your daughter's approaching 1 year old, and you've hardly seen her."
mm,
And so I then made a decision that I would leave the hotel industry and I went into the food industry. I joined Caterplan, which later became Unilever Food Solutions, as a sales rep. So having gone from a senior position in management in a hotel, suddenly being a rep, because I thought, great, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, car driving around. You know, this is what you see a rep as one thing or a salesperson
yeah,
one thing. You don't realize what goes on outside of it. And so I did that. And I was at home more initially, but I had a young family to feed. So I had that pressure, which prior to, a few years prior to
mm,
that, I had none of those stresses. So I had to think about feeding the family, making sure the bills were paid, keeping the family entertained. We had from 9 years old down to 1 year old at that stage. So quite a broad spread. Um, and a job that I had 500 end user accounts to go and sell soup, stock, mayonnaise, pasta, and a few other things like that for. And driving around, you think, yeah, it starts at night. It doesn't. It used to start at 7 a.m., 6:30 quite often, making your samples, like fresh samples for the day. And so I was like, going out, 10 calls per day was our target, which is hard. Occasionally you hit it very often. Bang away, do those 10 calls, get orders, scratch the pad. Fantastic training, 13 weeks of intensive training with a sales trainer with me. So I learned the science of selling, the process of selling, and then then you add your personality and all the rest of it to it. But the actual process is very much a process-driven thing. You work hard, you graft hard, you want to hit your sales targets, you want to hit those bonuses, you want to be best. I want to be
mm,
Hellman's mayonnaise sales person of the quarter. I want to be the top soup seller that quarter, that kind of stuff. A lot of miles on the road. I know I was doing 60 odd thousand miles a year on the road, and yeah, that was it. So what was going on in my mind at the time is like, how do I keep myself going? I
yeah,
remember that, it's about, it really was work hard, and I was in the moment at that stage. So when I was 30, it was just work hard, graft, and learn. And I learned a huge amount during that time, but I now know that back then it was like, oh, this is a huge change.
yeah. So did you feel you had life figured out at 30 or like were you just winging it?
I was winging it.
I was gonna correct you if you didn't say that.
I was completely, to say, I'd say at 25, I think I had my life worked out. I knew what my
Yeah,
plan. I used to very much I still am like a 5 year plan kind of person, but I knew at 25, I had no idea I was going to fall in love with this girl, have a family, get married. It was not on my radar at all. And then I did, and then we started the family, and it was like, oh crikey, I suddenly got all these responsibilities. I'm a dad. I've got to bring in money. Before, it really didn't matter if you probably know I took a sabbatical for when I was working in France, and I went around the world. I went backpacking around the world when I was 26 years old.
mm,
So it didn't care. I didn't care. Just traveled. I got a huge amount of life experience. Fantastic. I no longer could do that. Literally, you've got school holidays to think of. You've got Christmases. You've got all that kind of stuff, and the change of career. So no, I was winging it. I was really winging
yeah.
it.
But what was your biggest dream at that time? If you had time to actually dream, what was your biggest dream?
Okay, well, I wasn't chasing the millions. I
Yeah,
think at that stage, I think for me the most important thing was security. No, literally, I wasn't thinking beyond that. At 30, I can say I was thinking just we buy a house. So that was the first thing. We bought a house fairly quickly. So we got a house, we got a car, and then in the background, I also, because this entrepreneurial spirit is always there, we also started doing some work on a restaurant concept that we do. Actually, it was a coffee shop in Newcastle. But I'd say that I didn't at that stage. My sort of more advanced planning didn't come in. It was only when I'd been at Cater Plan for probably a couple more years that I realized actually I'm quite good at what I do. Where can this go in my career? I need to think about my career. And again, this maybe sounds ageist or sexist. I don't think a lot of guys really kind of become focused on their careers properly of my generation until you're around about that 27 to 30 kind of age. Before that, it's a lot of fun. The ladies tend to
Mm.
grow up and be a bit more sensible, but guys tend to still, okay, I have a Harley and I do other stuff like that. So, then I started to realize actually I can do this. And so then when I became, I became an area sales manager, and then I became a sales manager, and I then changed company. One of my customers asked me to join them as a depot sales manager, so running a food distribution depot. And within 8 weeks, I was actually running two depots. And within 4 months, I was running three. And within 6 months, I was the Southern sales controller for that business. And after a year, I was national sales controller for that business. And it was all because of what I'd learned in Cater Plan. It
Yeah.
really was a lot about that sales, how to do structured sales. And I'd implemented those techniques. I was quite ruthless as well. I kicked people out fairly quickly who weren't prepared to work hard. They were just lazy, sitting around having cups of coffee and not actually bringing anything in, looking at numbers, analyzing numbers. Well, are you doing enough calls? Weirdly enough, the salespeople who get in front of more customers get more calls.
Yeah.
It's a weird correlation that some people don't seem to understand. But you make it structured, you get them in, you give them a vision, you set targets, and as long as people know what they're trying to achieve, Cater Plan was fantastic for that. So we did that, and then it was fairly quick. So in that distributor business, very quickly my career progressed, and I realized, wow, I can do this because I had the management skills from the hotel industry.
Yeah.
I was able to apply that in that company and grow. So my vision was probably then coming up, okay, I can take this further. Where do I go to? And then believing in myself. I think
Yeah.
I always felt like I was an imposter. And I think I've always been slightly driven by fear of failure. And I still talk to people now, and you can see that. I've just been mentoring this young guy who actually, Dubai again, wants to go out to Dubai, and I've been helping him. He knows exactly how to do it, but just helping him focus his mind on how to get that job and go to. And he's just had his final interview, so hopefully he finds out this week that he's got the job. But it's like people often don't believe in themselves enough.
Yeah. I agree.
I work hard to make sure I don't fail. Still to this day, I'm the same. Then saying, okay, where can I go with this? So then from that distributor, I joined an international food company based in the Netherlands selling French fries, and did that, and became their head guy in the UK, and did some work in Europe. I won't mention the brands. I hate to mention the brands. And then, but then we again back to family. We had a tragic period in our life. Is that my oldest daughter, my wife's oldest daughter, was diagnosed with quite late stage cancer. And stage 4, you think, oh, she's got 30% chance of living. It was scary. And I actually packed in the job. I handed my notice in because I knew I needed to spend time with her. Obvious thing to do. I bought a restaurant because then I could be at home all the time. It was obvious, really.
Obvious.
But and she recovered. She recovered. She's an incredibly strong girl, super fantastic. Only 17 years old at the time, so it was really tough on her. But she was brilliant. Total positive mindset. She's recovered.
Incredible. Full stage.
Yeah. She's now a senior diagnostic radiographer, so she can actually tell people what it's all like when you have the chemicals put in you and all this kind of stuff and everything. So
Oh,
I say to her in a really patronizing way, you're a wonder to us all. But I mean every single word of it. She's
yes,
incredible.
yeah, that's incredible, Tim.
Yeah. And then so I did that my own restaurant, and then that became successful. We won lots of awards, we were on TV, and then I got lured back into another French fry company. And again, more senior position. That took me to the cheese company, and then on to the Middle East, and every stage it was an excess. So you realized you'd go up, and then when I got to the VP of the business in Saudi, yeah, the next position was to be, the CEO, president, whatever it would be. And but I only really realized that probably in my mid 30s, I'd say. Probably 30 was just because of that change of industry.
Yeah,
It's only then I realized that that's what it was. So no, I was actually first one, was I winging it? Yes. Were my dreams? My dreams were just forming where I could be, and I'm kind of where I expected to be now.
yeah. And obviously as you become more confident, see, it's easier to then start to look at that vision for the future.
Mm.
Because when you're not stuck in that sort of, well, imposter syndrome and all of those issues which take up that energy, you've got more energy to really look at, well, what am I going to do now and what am I going to create? And as you create that experience, those lifestyle choices and everything else, although a restaurant with 5 kids at home, I'm not sure that was the best move, Tim, but you can speak better to that.
It was because, like I said before, you become a sales rep, you think 9 to 5, but it wasn't like that. Literally, I was away from home 4 nights a week. I was traveling all the time and I wasn't at home and it
Yeah,
wasn't fair on my wife. And she was really struggling with it. So I had to find
yeah.
something at home. I thought, well, what can I do? So we bought this place and it was a rundown pub. Got it at a good price, but we put some vision into it. We knew we wanted to turn it into proper quality British food using all local farms. So we bought everything within 10 miles. I could see 5 farms out the kitchen window, and we
Wow.
won. We won Taste of the West Gold Award for the best dining pub in west of England, and best chef, which was me. So there you go. I felt like a cook. Best pub, country pub of the year in
Awesome.
Somerset Live. So, and that brought us the attention of Wadworth's Brewery. And actually,
Right.
Wadworth Kingdom gave us an offer that we couldn't refuse. But we'd only been there 3 years. The chairman of Wadworth came in, and I didn't know who he was. And he said, "Look,
Yeah, yeah.
look, this place is really busy, really like it. Would you sell it?" And he gave me his card. Charles Bartholomew, I remember that. I said, any business is for sale at the right price. And he said, "Well, what's your price?"
Absolutely, 100%,
So
100%.
I'd actually just had it valued because I wanted to put on 10 bedrooms extension on it. So I knew the value that I could do for a mortgage. And he came in and he offered me 60,000 more than that. So I bought it for 160. He bought it, sold it. I sold it to him for 550 for 3 years. So that was quite a good growth. And what's sad is that hotel, that restaurant, when the new people came in, when we left, they were bringing like tubs of margarine and, you know, plastic.
No.
It's going to go a wrong way because we baked our own bread. We used hand churned butter. We did all this stuff. No, it was very good. Oh no, and it literally they went through 9 landlords, and now it's gone back into private hands again. I believe it's doing okay again. My daughter actually visited a few weeks ago, so it's doing okay.
Aw,
But it's not the foodie destination it was when we were there.
but
But
it
it's
was,
still
yeah. They didn't understand, did they? They didn't have that experience from your experience in the food industry and hospitality industry, all those beautiful things, the hand churned butter, the things that make a difference,
yeah.
those extra things which are like,
Yeah, knowing the farmers by name, and that
yeah,
kind of stuff. And it was fantastic working. It was brilliant. It was, yes, I was working very long hours, but my family were there,
yeah,
the kids were there, and my kids grew up a few years there and they loved it. But it
yeah,
was I had no intention of selling, but then when this guy came up with money, my first wife said to me, "Take it. I hate it here." I didn't
yeah, fair
realize.
enough. And
I
you've
was
got to
so
take
on
that.
other thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we took it. We took it. And then I was going to do something different, but then I ended up literally. I had a phone call. I remember I was in. We went on holiday to Antigua, I think it was, and my phone rang, and it hadn't worked. It hadn't no, it hadn't rung for years, and it was
Mm.
somebody from a French fry company saying, "Here that you're on the market. You might be looking. So do you want to come and join us for a year on this special project?" I ended up joining them for 4 years and setting up a sales team, end user sales team, and developing a product, and that was it. So it was just happened to be. So
Was
that
just meant
wasn't
to be. Yeah, wasn't
things kind of
planned.
fell into place that way, and then probably my strategy about development became more important. I thought, look, well, where do I go from here? What do I do this? And then that was it.
Yeah, brilliant. So looking back now, Tim, on what's something you were completely wrong about at 30?
What was I completely wrong about 30? That's a good question. I think back then I used to think a lot of it was you just work hard. Just work
Yeah,
hard. The more hours you put in, the longer you are, eventually you'll win. But actually, I've learned that graph matters, but actually it's about people, it's about timing, it's about learning when to say no, it's about having a strategy, it's about looking at how to get from A to B. And with wisdom and age, you're going to know, okay, there's going to be a mistake here, and oh, that's not going to work or whatever. But the person you're talking with maybe thinks it will work. So you got to have the plan B and stuff ready for that. So
Mm,
yeah, I think it's, you got to look further ahead. You've got to have that solution, and you've got to work with people. You've got to take people with you. It's not about you. You know, as a salesperson, it can be very lonely existence.
yeah,
You're very much
totally.
on your own. So I was very fortunate. I had a fantastic mentor in at that food distribution company who was also ex Caterplan, a guy called David Greenwood Haig. I don't know if you met David. He's now
And
a
the name's very familiar, so
you should get him on
maybe.
because he's an international chocolate consultant now.
Wonderful. Yes, we need him on the podcast.
Yeah, best job in the world. He goes all around the world putting in chocolate plants. He's working with us over here on
Yeah,
our Lady in Chocolate. So you having someone like that, you can bounce ideas off,
yeah,
and you can, and he will question you, and he's very annoying because he will question it deeply. You think you're right, and then you can learn. So you got that, and then also building relationships with other people. You got LinkedIn. I constantly delete people off LinkedIn because I don't know them and I don't know how their names ever appears connected to me. But the ones that I have, they are
mm,
people that I know and I can trust, and I know I can talk to them. And I say, look, we chat. Sometimes we have a chat and say, what do you think? Or we want to do this, or we want to do that.
yeah.
And having those connections is really, really important.
It's
But
invaluable, isn't it?
also with your customers, with your
Yeah,
clients, because you, I think a lot of people, again, in the business that we're in food, so, and hospitality is about building relationship. It's not having a customer, it's a client. This is a long-term relationship. If you understand what they need to achieve, what
yeah.
are they trying to do? Yes, they want your product or your solution because it makes them look better, or makes their business look better, or makes their business better, or whatever it is. You try and find that solution. If your product completely square and it needs slightly curved edges, well, give it slightly curved edges. Make it fit what they need. And I think that to me is important. And understanding the long term value of that has. It's not just about the work.
No, I agree. I 100% believe that, positive connection and those relationships are what gets you through. As you said, it's a very lonely, or it can be a very lonely place when you're out on the road, even when you're at the top of a business as a CEO, quite often it's a very lonely place. And,
Yeah.
those peer groups or we maybe knew at the beginning of our journey in the food industry in the UK that are now senior, very senior in a lot of some of the biggest companies. But when you've really respected that relationship and built that relationship, it's such an incredible um, honor, I suppose, in some ways, to have those strong relationships.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, we found that during COVID. The
Yeah.
relationships that we'd built many, many years ago were the ones that we connected with, and the questions were, how can we help each other?
Yes.
And, that wasn't something that we had to build, that was something that was there. Those relationships were there, they were in place. And, I think the most important word there, the trust, was there.
Yes.
And that's incredible. So, Tim, they say that life's the best teacher,
Hmm.
and sometimes the lessons come wrapped in disaster. So, let's talk about the biggest curveball that life threw at you, whether it was in business, relationships, or personal growth. What's one experience that at the time felt like the worst thing that ever happened, but actually retrospectively ended up shaping you?
Okay. I think probably when I got involved with a business partner and invested in a project, put a lot of money into a project, and I was getting a lot of advice from one side to tie things up in documentation to get it all done correctly. But this business partner was a very close friend, and then it all went wrong. This person was not.
Is this a case of contracts suffer the bad times?
Yeah, this was, yeah, exactly. What I learned is I'm a very trusting kind of person. So I believed what we're doing, everything was right, but what I didn't believe, what I didn't understand, and what I didn't recognize was that not everybody is as honest as they always appear, and as a result, it ends up costing a lot of money. So that was probably one of the hardest things to do. So the whole thing went pear shaped, and yeah, that's probably the toughest lesson. And what I've learned now is I've got a few partnerships going now. And the first thing I do is I get a commercial agreement, an MOU commercial agreement signed up to straight away, or
Yeah.
don't share anything, because otherwise, as much as they might come across as being trustworthy and honest, the rest of it, it's for both sides protection. So that's
Yeah.
quite
Agreed.
late in life to learn that lesson, because this lesson was only a few years ago. But end of the
Yeah.
day, that's probably been my biggest.
And what was the actual hardest part about that experience?
The hardest part, it wasn't the money. It might sound
No.
silly. It wasn't the money. It actually was the hardest part for me was the breaking of trust. And I think that's
Mm.
the worst. When somebody that you trust completely does something that you believe is out of character and lets you down completely, then it's dreadful, dreadful. So I think that's the hardest. And as
And
I
how
say,
did
I
you push
trusted.
through that? How did you actually how did you rebuild from that? Because that's a major, when you have a high value of positive connection, we spoke just now about, the importance of relationships
Mm.
in life and the trust that we put into those. How did you push through that? How did you rebuild from that situation?
You've just got to be resilient, sort of stand up and say, "Okay, box it off. I can deal with the financial side of it. Fine. Money's only money. It's just green paper. But the trusting, I can never trust that person again. So just block them out of my life, because that's a negative energy. I don't need that negative energy. If you spend your time feeling bitter about it, you'd not be able to look forward to the future. And now I have an incredibly supportive wife. I live in an amazing country. I have a huge opportunity here with the business that we've built. I've got a nice team around me. I've got good people, and we're on a vision. We know what we're doing. So block out the negative. But I've
Yeah,
got friends here who said, look, don't you want to do this? Don't you want to do that? And so, no, just leave it. End of the day, in life, it will come back to that person. That negative
yeah,
energy will come back to that person. So
it
it's not
will.
my job to deal with it. You could put into religious terms. I won't go on about that, but it'll come back to that person. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It doesn't, and it will hurt me if I think about it. You'll end up
yeah.
being. So just box it
So
off. Go away.
yeah. So if you could go back and whisper advice to yourself in that moment, what would you say now?
Do it and get it contracted from the very beginning. Seriously, get it contracted. And the really nagging and annoying thing is my wife was telling me that I need to get it in contract. I said, yeah, 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 we'll get it done. We'll get it done. And then never did, because we were so busy getting on with stuff, having a great time, and I didn't realize what was going on.
Yeah.
So I
So
didn't realize what the game was.
how did that yes, exactly. And unfortunately to some people it is a game and they maybe will never take responsibility for the way that they've behaved. But how did that challenge change the way that you approach success now? And we've spoken a little bit about obviously the contractual side.
Yeah, I think you've always got to be positive. I'm naturally a positive person. You've got to be in sales. Yeah. So you just look, I have a very clear vision of where we want to be now. Yes. What this company I'm with now, we know what we want to do. We want to take it in a certain direction. It's hard work, but at the same time, we can focus on it. And then there are little bits and pieces on the end. I remember somebody a long time ago, a lady who is a CEO of a big buying group in the UK. She said, "You work on the back of fag packets, you know? You just like scan out an idea and that's it." And she's partly right. But if you
We
go
were
went
allowed
through
to
my
do that in the old days though.
but if you
Yeah.
went through my files here on my screen, you'll see I have everything documented. I'm a believer in SOPs. I'm a believer in KPIs and this kind of stuff. And maybe balanced scorecard is going a bit too far, but I believe in saying where you want to be. If you're constantly referring back to your business plan, I think a lot of people do a business plan, spend a lot of time doing a business plan, and don't refer back to it. So my monthly sales reports are in the same folder as my business plan, because they constantly go into the same. We've got to reflect where I thought it's not a straight line, it's not linear, and yes, it's like that. And other opportunities will come along the way, and you grasp those opportunities if the right ones or if they're not right. But I think having that vision, having it documented, any contracts we do, kind of protect yourself, because not everybody is nice.
Yeah.
Then you
Yeah.
need to do it, but still don't lose that positivity and belief that generally people are okay. And there are some people who can.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think if I've had a similar situation to you over the last 5 years when I was sick. I was badly taken advantage of, but, in reality, you've then got to take responsibility for that, the part that you played in it, and then move forward because there is no point in being in the negative. There really isn't. It just detracts from everything else. So, Tim, let's get to the heart of this episode. And what I wish I knew at 30 is about helping, the younger generation to maybe learn a little bit from the hard-earned lessons and the things that that we've done before. If you could give your 30-year-old self just 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
Okay. Don't do it all yourself, or don't carry it all yourself. Ask for help when you need it. Build a team
Mm,
and trust that team and learn how to delegate properly.
I
I
love
am
that.
lucky as much as some of the people I've worked with more than once. And a few of them have said, if you ever have a job, I'd love to come and work for you again. One guy who's a sales guy in the UK, he was a chef when I met him, became a good sales guy, good grafter, got on, has done very well. Another also a chef, actually, he's worked with me a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and he's now CEO of some organization in the UK. They've always got that positivity. So still friends, still
Yeah,
regularly chat with these people over the years. So that's one. Don't carry it all yourself. You don't need to do it all yourself, but get people around you who have the same vision, the same dream, and the same desire. Not just pretend to have the vision, but you
yeah.
completely get it. It's not all about what goes on in the office on the road. It's also what happens on a social level or whatever, and this type of stuff. So learn to say no. Sometimes you have to understand when it's right to say no. Only take an opportunity when it really is a good one, because it can get exciting if sometimes an opportunity comes along and it looks great, but you dig into it and actually it's too far off what your core values are. Something's wrong with the values or something's not quite right. So you have to say no. I think it's always great to get a job offer and turn it down because A, they value you, but then don't just turn down for the sake. But say for example, when you dug in and it's a two-way street, a job interview. There's something not right in that company. If you feel something's not right, ask questions about it. And if they don't want to answer it, then say, okay, fine, no, it's not right for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's really important. So to say no. And I think, uh, yeah, I think the final thing is that you're not alone. You have how you handle pressure really reflects how I behave. My behavior has a massive amount of impact on other people around me that you perhaps don't realize when you're younger, and in a
Mm,
negative and a positive way. And I do remember in one company, the team in the kitchen, and there was a food development team, and they said every day you come in and you're happy and you're cheerful. Even if I'm not, even driving in I'm grumpy. Every time I come in I'm positive. That makes them feel more positive. But the flip side is, say for example, I have an argument with my wife before I go to work, or something's wrong, and you roll that into work. Oh my god, it can ruin a day for everybody. And you don't realize it. But one word said on the plate, you say one word wrong that is not the right thing to say. You say it, and it completely crushed somebody. So I don't think you realize. So that thing about you've got to handle the pressure, you've got to handle things yourself, and recognize that what image you give off really impacts on other people far more than you
yeah,
realize.
I agree. And that, not everybody has that self-awareness to actually understand that, but it's definitely one of the soft skills. And I think it's become more, in fact, it's probably not a soft skill. It's probably a really hard, skill that is essential
Mm.
because it does affect everybody. And when you do that with a team, whether you're leading a team or whether you're part of it, we are live. Here's the dogs.
Oh, God.
It is one of those things that is so important to be aware. And I think now there's a lot of courses, there's a lot of mentoring, there's a lot more emphasis put on it's not the same where you'd get, the chefs that would come in smashing into the kitchen and just destroy everybody around them, but you were still expected to carry on working, or whether that was somebody in a factory with the same thing. Those things really aren't acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
So it is personal responsibility about how we communicate. And I think that's a really important life lesson.
Yes. Yeah. I think smiling is important as well.
Yeah,
Smiling.
always.
It really is. It's so simple to do, to smile. But like
Yeah,
you can train yourself to smile more, or just remember to smile. If you're happy, smile. And it just makes people feel happier at work.
yeah,
And
totally.
when you're happy, it works. That's it.
I can remember doing sales training many, many years ago at Ashridge Management College in Berkhamsted, and one of the guys that was teaching us, and we were doing role play, and I can remember him saying, and I always kept this. He said, "When you're on a difficult phone call,
Yeah.
always smile, because when you're smiling, your whole intention, your whole vibration is very different." And it was like, pretty much this course I was on was with sort of the general manager of Dulux Northern Hemisphere. There was a general manager from GSK, or it wasn't called that then. It was Beecham's, Klein, Smith Beecham, but it was, they were all, there was me. I was, I think, 23. And it's sort of when we all stood up and introduced ourselves, it was, oh, well, I work for my dad. But, that was one of the things that was, when you're talking to someone, when you've got a difficult conversation to have, make sure that you're grounded, make sure you're aware, and
Mm,
smile, because you
yeah.
will pretty much always get what you want as long as you know what that outcome is.
Yes.
So I love that. I think that's a really, really powerful message.
Yes.
Do you think, Tim, that the younger professionals and entrepreneurs today, do you think they're struggling with the same things that we did, or do you think they're facing completely different world?
I think a bit of both. I
Mm,
think self-doubt, impatience, fear of failure, those kind of things. I think they'll be the same. But
universal.
today's world is noisier, and there's a lot of social media. It comes at you in every single direction now. It's like, remember these things, they were used for making phone calls.
Yeah,
Nowadays, you've got Slack, you've got WhatsApp, you've got
yeah,
everything comes through on here. Your emails come through on here. They're But also younger people's brains that seem to be able to cope with it far better. It's like in the motorcycle club, we have a website, we have social
yeah.
media, we have our Instagram, but we just started TikTok, right? So
Oh,
we put
modern
videos
of you, Tim.
on the website. We have videos, and like there's one I've just done one from the Highland Games at the weekend. Moment it's 4 minutes 30 long. On Instagram, that will go down to 1 minute 30. On TikTok, it'll be 15 seconds, right? Because they're for different audiences.
Yeah,
And I think younger people, and this is huge generalization, but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like people are different. They are different. I think
Mm,
the fundamental issues are probably still the same about how they work, and impatience, fear of failure, and all those kind of stuff. And those insecurities are still there. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that there's a whole load of different things that come in there that we didn't have to deal with. It's like
yeah. I agree. I
all
think
the
and
all
it's
the
changing.
yeah, and you've got to adapt. It's like I use AI, not just your GPTs, but I use lots of different AIs to help me do my job better. And I look at, well, how can I streamline that? How can I make it more functioning? How can I make it better? I embrace that technology. So
Yeah,
you've got to evolve. You've got to change. And there's a big thing going on LinkedIn of people about storytelling for selling. Yes. Well,
yeah, yeah.
I've always storytold
We've always
for
done that,
selling.
haven't we? Yeah, I
It's
agree.
it's what it's all about. But it's a storytelling for selling, and this whole LinkedIn generation is quite interesting. And you see people who use ChatGPT to literally write the response, and you think,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah, yeah,
you're just doing it because you want to have your name on there, but it doesn't really matter. So I think there are all these different things, but I think fundamentally it's both. I think they're going to struggle. Younger people are going to struggle with the traditional things that we had problems with.
yeah,
Some of
yeah.
them will have gone, and there'll be a whole lot of new ones from changing market environments,
Mm.
technology, etc.
I think the beautiful thing though, Tim, is that, and one thing that I will never let go, I think it's very easy to become the text queen or the LinkedIn queen or but to actually have these face to face conversations, well, almost face to face. You're in Malaysia, I'm in Melbourne. But I mean, these to me will always be the most important. I mean, I much prefer to be literally face to face and to be able to talk to people. And I do try quite hard to make sure that, I mean, I spend a lot of time traveling as you do
Yeah,
to keep those relationships. But I think that's also a really important thing because, when you see the whites of someone's eyes, I think that's when you know that you've got a true friendship or
yes,
a business relationship which is going to stand the test of time. Apart from the ones
100%.
that, yeah, apart from the ones that we maybe didn't see the red flags on and, what we learn from those.
It's the way it is. But no, I agree with you there entirely. And I think, when you read some of the textbooks and say it can all be handled by AI and WhatsApp and that kind of, you can't beat physically dropping in seeing customers. Like yesterday afternoon, I had 3 hours became spare. And so I just walked around and visited loads of my clients and
Mm,
unannounced, wandered in. They're all hotels, restaurants, this kind of stuff. Wandered in, had a quick chat, I found this guy needs some new menus to this, and somebody else wanted that, and somebody else wanted to add that onto another outlet that they're opening up. And you came in, talked about some potential new products coming, and this is invaluable.
yeah.
At the bar, have a cup of coffee or whatever with them, and then you just mosey on to the next place, and they're all. That's such a great opportunity, and I love doing that. And it's like with our delivery drivers, yes, I don't want them to
Mm,
take the boxes in, drop off, and leave. I want them to take the boxes
mm,
in, have a chat, have a little look, just wander into the service area if they're allowed to, and then make sure everything's okay. Have a chat. How's it selling? How are you enjoying it? Blah blah. What's your favorite? And that little bit of extra relationship. I know that the other guys run in, drop a box, and run. Yes, I would rather than
yeah,
do the extra little bit
yeah.
because the
But
drivers
it's all,
probably see the
yeah,
customer more than anybody else.
yeah, yeah. And it gives, as you said, it gives them the opportunity to create a relationship. And when the chef doesn't have time, when you walk in, he can actually say, "Oh, by the way, I really need this. Can you get this to me by
Yes.
Friday?" Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
Done. It's
Yeah.
those things that probably wouldn't have happened if you didn't bother.
Yeah, no, exactly. You got to
Important.
regularly, and that goes back to the cater plan day. It's a very big thing. You had your
Yeah,
circle of, you had to go every 13-week customers, and then your 8-week customers. You'd see it's
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and that was about that. And it was back to the very basics. That still exists.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think that will change even, and a text message, a text message or an email just doesn't cut it the same way, I don't think.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously it can back up, it can do a lot, but I don't think, actually replacing that face to face, which is so important. So
It
Tim,
is.
yeah, it really is. What's the best advice you ever received and who gave it to you?
Okay, good one. There's probably two. Bit of
Okay, you can have
once
two.
we're
I'll
talking
let you
about
have
from
two.
very very basically. I remember this. I always remember it is two ears, one mouth. Yes, just remember two ears, one
Yes.
mouth. And then the second one is probably never confuse activity with achievement. So
Mm,
you can end up being a busy fool,
yeah,
and not always effective. Always that was David Greenwood Hay. He was my kind of mentor. We still 30, 40 odd years later, we still have WhatsApp calls and video WhatsApp
brilliant.
calls probably once a month or less. We used to be every day. For years, it was every day. When I lived in the UK, literally, we'd have a 5 minute chat. Even while I was working for different companies, we'd chat every day. But yeah, it's probably that. Never shoot. So it's not all about. It's about getting to the achievements. Yes, it's about understanding where you want to get to and how you get there. And that's probably most important. People don't remember the work that you've done; they just remember the achievement. And you need to be remembered for those things. Yeah, it's still nice to get a pat on the back and be told,
Yeah,
"Well done."
yeah. No, for sure, for
I
sure.
say that's probably it.
So, Tim, we've covered the
Yeah.
deep stuff. Let's have a bit of fun. I'm going to hit you with some real quick fire questions. Don't
Okay.
overthink. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Okay.
Okay.
What's the worst business or life advice you ever got?
Follow the money. Yeah. Okay. You need purpose. Purpose is far more important than profit.
Perfect. If you could have lunch with any historical figure, who would it be?
Okay. Slightly random this one. I think Ingrid Bergman.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm brave enough to ask you why.
Okay. I remember I lived in Paris a long time ago and went to see an old movie with her in it. And oh my God, she's a beautiful lady.
Yeah,
But also she has grace, strength, resilience. She navigated fame really, really well. And there
yeah.
was scandal in her life as well. And I think she was a proper old star movie star.
Mm,
And she went through the whole life with grace. So I think someone like her would be lovely at a dinner table.
beautiful. That's gorgeous. What's a guilty pleasure you refuse to apologize for?
My Harley. or my Harleys.
Yeah, perfect. And I've really been looking forward to asking you this next question. If your 30-year-old self had a theme song, what would it be?
Okay. If I had a theme song, I think of a few, but the song that I would say probably is Tom Sawyer by Rush. I don't know if you
Hmm,
know it.
I don't think I do. I probably
Okay.
would, but I don't, it doesn't immediately come to, but I'm going to listen to it exactly after this.
The boys in the bike club would know it'd be Rush, and it could be lots of different songs by Rush actually. Um, but not just because of the song, which is fantastic song and great melodies and whatever, but by my favorite band, but also when you actually hook it back to sort of Twain's character and full of adventure, misunderstood, mischievous, that kind of I like that. I like
You like that?
I don't like fitting in a straight up box. I like being a bit outside thinking. I like being a bit naughty. I make plenty of mistakes as we go along and sometimes offend people and whatever else. But if you don't, you got to make your own path, and that's
Yeah,
why I think that is pretty much a good kind of thing.
love it. Love it. And Tim, my last question, what's one thing you absolutely sucked at in your 30s, but you've mastered now?
Again, I have two. I'll tell you the correct answer, and then I'll think about the other one. I'll tell you. It's, it's probably patience.
Okay,
I probably had I probably had too much patience in my 30s. And I'm
interesting.
less patient now. It's not the other way around. So, I had a young family, so you've got to be, you had to be patient with little kids. You've
Mm,
got and managing all those accounts and all the other bits, you've got to be patient. Now I'd say I'm actually less patient. It's not because I've got less years to achieve them, which I am aware that there is a door at the end of my life that is a lot closer now than it was when I was 30. But I think my experience in life makes me sharper.
yes.
I can see through nonsense quicker.
Mm,
I think before I probably wouldn't have said anything. I said, "Yeah, okay, all right, okay, I can do this." But now I'm probably a bit more, slightly more to the point. Without being rude, I don't like to offend people, obviously, especially in the
no,
culture I am now,
yeah,
where I am the white minority, and there is that, especially it's a form of colony. You don't want to be
yeah, yeah.
the white guy telling the locals what to do, kind of stuff.
No.
But I am probably less patient now than I used to be, and I think that
Is it
is.
patient or is it less tolerant? Are you more aligned with your values, the standards that you'll accept, and not afraid to actually give yourself permission to align with those values and what brings you peace, what brings you joy? Is it patience or is it tolerance?
It could be. You could be right. You could be right. I'm probably less tolerant now than I used to be. I'm a grumpy old man, but maybe that's maybe a thing. Yeah. And the other more
And do you
flippant
think
thing,
that's a good
by the
thing?
way. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not well, Alf Garnett or something like that. Extremely intolerant of everything. It's just like saying, no, I can't be bothered with this. No,
Yeah,
I don't want to have that conversation with you or whatever else. It's if you don't want if we're different and I don't agree with that, and I'll talk to somebody
yeah.
else. Thank you.
And
There's
let's
no
face it, exactly. I mean, let's face it, time and energy you don't get back.
no.
So everything that we use our time or our energy on
Yes.
or for now needs to be intentional.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I mean, it sounds as though, we're fairly alike in that we can be unapologetic now about who we are, what we
Yeah.
stand for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I've always been the one who, even when I was a kid at school, I'd put my hand up and ask a question if I didn't understand, and you knew that everybody else didn't understand either, but I would always put my
Yeah,
hand. I was never afraid of that. I think
yeah,
when in young corporate life, so going from hotel industry into food, I think I didn't ask so many questions. I asked questions on a one-to-one basis, but wouldn't expose myself. Now I don't
yeah.
care. It
No.
doesn't really matter. So if I say something really stupid, it doesn't matter because maybe somebody else is thinking, or maybe I'm just totally on a different level. I don't know. I don't care. I don't really mind. It doesn't. But I have
And
no
it doesn't
patience.
matter, does it?
It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. At the end of the day, no one's
Brilliant.
here to prove me anything. And the other more small thing, by the way, that I said there's actually two. At about 30, I was really, really rubbish at doing pastry, and now I'm quite good at it.
At pastry,
My hands At pastry, yeah. I was really at doing particularly doing sugar pastry. My hands are always very warm.
because that's interesting because you're actually in Malaysia now, so it's a lot
Yeah.
warmer.
Yeah.
And your pastry's better?
Yeah, my pastry's better, but my kitchen's very cool, and I have marble tops on my kitchen. I have very good air conditioning. But it's more to do with the fact of patience. I think, that's the
Yeah,
other way around. I just I was never, I never used to really enjoy doing pastry when I was a young chef. I used to enjoy sauce, meat, eggs, this kind of stuff.
yeah,
Pastry
all the
never
big
really.
stuff.
Yeah, but later I kind of, I quite enjoy it now. I find it quite
Well,
therapeutic.
I'm looking forward to coming to Malaysia and trying your pastries.
Okay, set myself up for a plan. You're welcome anytime, you know that.
I know that, thank you. Tim, that was incredible. I know that so many of our listeners are going to resonate with your story, with your wisdom. But before we wrap up, let's just do a quick recap. What's the single biggest takeaway you want people to remember from our conversation?
That's a tough one. I think the most important thing in my life is it's about values, relating your values, and don't drift away from your values. I think, and understanding that you can make a positive impact outside of business. We talked about it off before we were talking. It's like understand that you can have this ability to influence more people or create positivity in more people. So it's about those values. So hopefully people understand from the bit we've talked about, it's not just about business. It's about having fun or work or whatever, but also doing it for the better good. It's not just about putting the money in the bank at the end of the day. It's about creating something that's going to benefit more people than just you, especially if they're underprivileged, especially if they're, that kind of stuff, and give them that positivity. And you can, anybody can, if they just put their mind to it. I know it's like easy to say that when you're got some money in the bank, but at the same time, you can have that benefit that helps a lot more people.
Yeah, and makes it a lot more worthwhile than
Yeah,
just the profit, as you say. I
yeah.
love that, Tim. And for everyone listening, here's my challenge to you. Take one thing from today's episode and apply it to your life this week. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who can mentor you. Maybe it's finally taking that leap that you've been scared of. But whatever it is, take action. And if this episode inspired you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have a question or a topic you want me to cover in a future episode, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in to What I Wish I Knew at 30. Remember, your best chapters are still ahead. See you next time. So from me, it's goodbye. And from Tim, it's goodbye too. Thank you so
Goodbye.
much. Bye.